Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions, as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Tottenham Transfer News Show. My name is Chris Cowlin, and today I'll be joined by Craig Dearman as we'll be covering all of the latest Spurs news, rumours and reports. Now, we're live on YouTube, live on Facebook and X. Today, of course, is the 5th of January. There are 28 days left of the January transfer window. Of course, it closes at 7 p.m. on the 2nd of Feb. Now, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, press like, comment below, and turn on that notification bell so YouTube informs you every single time we upload a video and go live. Craig, evening. How are you?
Evening. Yes, not too bad. After yesterday's game, had time to reflect and still haven't changed my opinion, but there you go.
Well, we won't get into that because we've spoke about that enough. Of course, Spurs are back in action on Wednesday in the Premier League, Bournemouth away. Let's hope the Spurs can get back to winning ways. But we're here to talk about transfers. I'm going to start actually with a couple of recalls for Tottenham. Now, Football.London on Sunday stated that Spurs have recalled Alfie Dorrington from Aberdeen, with various Championship and League One clubs interested in taking the centre-back on loan for the remainder of this season. Now, I've looked at the stats, Craig. Alfie has actually played 6 games in the Scottish Premiership this season, starting only 3, so lack of game time there. And also today, Spurs have announced that we have recalled George Abbott from his loan spell at Wycombe Wanderers. Of course, George Abbott had a very, very successful loan spell at Notts County last season, but this season he's only featured in 11 league games, starting 6, scoring 1 goal. I've got to say, I do like the way that Spurs do recall players if they're not getting game time at these clubs, and they very quickly try and find new clubs where they know that they are going to get game time. And Johan Langer spoke out about this at the fan forum and various other videos that Spurs put out as well. That is very, very important. That decision where these loan players go is very, very important, because there's no point, them going out on loan if they're not going to get the game time. I just hope that they do find clubs very quickly in this January transfer window and have very successful loan spells in this second part of the season. Your thoughts very quickly on this one?
Yeah, pretty much agree with that. It's pointless a player being out on loan at a side where he's not getting game time. And surprising about Alfie Dorrington, seemed to be quite happy up there, but obviously for whatever reason, not in the manager's plans. But look, both players come back, and hopefully the club will find them loans, because you are right, actually. Spurs are pretty good at doing that and keeping an eye on their loanees. You just got to hope they both find decent clubs to be at and get some more game time in the second half of the season, because it is important.
Craig, I just want to go to this one as well, because on Sunday it was announced by The Athletic and various other European reports as well that Tottenham have just had an £8 million bid for Santos left-back Sousa rejected. Now, it's interesting, this one, because Spurs do definitely need another player on that left side of defence. Of course, Jed Spence always fills in for Destiny Udogie when out injured. Now, there are apparently a lot of clubs interested in this player. And it's interesting because I want to go back to talk about what Thomas Frank said. You have target 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If this is clearly Tottenham's number one target in this January transfer window, in terms of that position, I mean, then Spurs should pay the money that Santos want, which I think is double this amount of money.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'll come at it from a slightly different angle in that other clubs looking at this youngster are probably not looking to sling him into the team straight away. Perhaps there's one for the future where, he's going to essentially be one for the future. Our Spurs looking at this lad to come in now. That's what essentially that it should be. So I don't know much about him, but, if Spurs have, identified this player, then they need to not lowball and go in, and if they really rate him that highly, I suppose is what I'm saying, is they need to go in, like you say, with a decent, sensible offer for him. It sounds like they've offered half of what is expected. So if they really want him, go and get him. I still maintain that perhaps it's another bit of a risk where we can't afford to be taking risks on players. So if you're going to get him, but go and get somebody else or something, get somebody with a bit more experience, because the players that have come from South America generally haven't done particularly well when they've come straight from South America to Tottenham, unless they're, English players. So yeah, it's bit of a worry, but if they want him, they need to, put up or shut up, I suppose is the expression. I just want to talk about Tell briefly.
Mm-hmm.
Give Me Sport reported that Matisse Tell could well go on loan. Galatasaray are interested. I think Roma's the other club. Thomas Frank in the press conference earlier was asked by Alistair Gold, I think it was, about Matisse Tell and that he played well on Sunday. And I agree, Matisse Tell did play well. He was obviously had limited minutes this season. And how Thomas Frank feels about Matisse Tell, I suppose. And he said, Matty, I think he calls him, played a good game. I think he was happy with him. But on the other hand, in the next breath, he basically saying that it's fair to say nobody's grabbed the shirt for the left wing position. So it wasn't particularly encouraging for me, Matisse Tell. I know he's probably he doesn't want to say to somebody, because he's kind of including Odebear in this, that, it's Matisse Tell's position. I get that. But he didn't really, if I was a Matisse Tell, I wouldn't be thinking, I'm going to get regular game time now, when he probably deserves it on yesterday's performance alone. So it's going to be an interesting one. Would I prefer Matisse Tell to stay at Spurs? At the moment, on what I've seen, yes, but I still want us to go in for a left winger. What's your thoughts on that, Chris?
Let me first say that I thought, he played extremely well, actually, against Sunderland. Matisse Tell grabbing his opportunity. And I always say that when players come in and they don't get many minutes, come in, grab that opportunity. Frank has already said that about no one's grabbed that opportunity. And that's what it's all about. He did actually say we are maybe short of offensive options, which I completely agree. So if we are thinking about letting another offensive player go out the door, whether it be a loan or a permanent move after letting Brennan Johnson go out, and also Mohamed Kudus, of course, who has had a scan today, we're waiting for the latest on that to see how long he will be injured. I know he missed the Bournemouth game, but Tell at the moment, I don't think any player should be heading out the door, particularly in those offensive areas in that final third, because we need players coming in the door. Absolutely. And on that subject, Craig, Brennan Johnson, Frank was asked that in the press conference today on Monday about letting him go to Crystal Palace. Was that the right decision? And he said, yes, it was the right decision. He said, for the long-term plans, there was an opportunity to sell Brennan Johnson and give him the opportunity to try something else. And that was the right decision. And he also said, obviously we sold him before. We knew that Mohamed Kudus was going to get injured. I I tell you, when I did the fan show last night, there seemed to be a lot of frustrated people that we've sold Brennan Johnson without bringing a player in first, and that's exactly how I feel, and I feel like most people feel like that. I know it's mixed opinions on whether you were a fan of Brennan Johnson, you thought he was good enough for Spurs, etc., etc. But when you're letting an offensive player go out the door, particularly when you can back that up by saying, look, the stats were he was our top goal scorer last season. Spurs should always bring in players first, in my opinion. But Thomas Frank was asked this a few times today, and he stood by his guns and said, look, it was the right decision. But let's wait and see. There are 4 weeks left of the transfer window, Craig. There is plenty of time for Spurs to get deals done. But as we all say as Spurs fans, particularly me and you, we always want them in early.
Yeah, and 5th today. So is it asking a bit much to get players through the door at the moment this early? Perhaps. But I just wonder if there was something in this Crystal Palace thing saying that, either we get him now or we don't get him at all, and he had to go that early and Spurs didn't have an opportunity. Obviously, he hadn't had an opportunity to bring somebody in. You could argue that. But then again, Crystal Palace have got their man in, haven't they? And Spurs have been left short. And now you couldn't write it, could you, that Mohamed Kudus gets injured a day or two after Brennan Johnson seals the deal to Crystal Palace? You could not write it. I mean, talk about bad luck, but that's Tottenham all over, isn't it?
Even Ben Davies after the game, after the Sunderland game, he said that is sod's law, that Brennan goes out the door and Mohamed Kudus then gets injured. And that's exactly how I would describe it as well, sod's law.
Sotomayor, yeah, absolutely. I wanted Brennan Johnson to stay, but they got the fee for him. Obviously, not part of Thomas Frank's plan. So, we don't run the place; they do. We've just got an opinion on it. So, good luck to Brennan Johnson, and just hope Spurs can bring somebody in.
Do you know what, though, Craig? I'd respect Thomas Frank a lot more if he just turned around and said he wasn't part of my plans and he's not a player that I want in my system, or something, words to that effect, rather than really try and scoot round the answer, because the journalist asked him a number of times and a number of different ways in the post-match presser after the Sunderland game, and then, of course, today in the pre-match presser ahead of the Bournemouth game. And I just prefer Thomas Frank to just come out and say, look, we sold him because da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, I do get what you mean. I mean, I do a lot of managers do that, possibly, but apparently he took Brennan Johnson to one side with, was it Fabio Paratici, I think, as well, was talking to, had a chat with him saying you're not in the plans. It is a bit weird. I think we covered this the other day in that, Paratici, if I was Brennan Johnson, would turn around and said to Paratici, well, hang on a minute, you're going to Fiorentina by all accounts anyway. So what greatest respect, what the hell am I talking to you? And if I was Brennan Johnson, I wanted to stay. And I said this the other day as well. I'd have turned around to Thomas Frank and said, well, look, likelihood is I'm going to outstay you and I want to be at Spurs and fight for my place. So I'm not going anywhere. But then again, he probably just done with it and wanted to move on. Another one from, this was caught offside actually. Reported that Spurs sent scouts over the weekend to watch Magnes Akliouche, the Monaco player who ruled the midfield when we played them. I think they played Lyon over the weekend, and they sent scouts to watch Akliouche play. Nothing more on that other than they sent people over there to watch him. Other than to comment on the player, I think he's a fantastic player, decent amount of experience. Champions League experience, and I think he could really do a job in the Premier League. He's certainly got that experience that we all want, not played in the Premier League, of course, but another player that we've been linked with before, never really moved for him. But would I be for this if we could get the deal done at the right price? Absolutely.
Can I ask you, Craig, in a January transfer window as a Spurs fan, do you prefer Premier League experience rather than taking a risk of a player that hasn't played in the Premier League before? Because I know, of course, there have been many successes, but in a January transfer window, particularly like I've said in the last couple of days and the last few weeks, actually, when you've got all of those teams mid-table and they're so close to the top European spots, do you want someone that has been proven in the Premier League?
Ideally, we always say that, don't we? Ideally, we do want that. I suppose, on the flip side, is it difficult to get players to want to move in January? The January window, we keep saying, I know it's boring to say and it's frustrating, but the January window is difficult. There's always a bit more of a premium price on players as well in January. Ideally, Premier League proven, but we need the depth at the moment. Players dropping like flies. It's, like Kudus, who knows how long he's going to be out for. If he's gone for a scan, I mean, I'm no doctor, but if you go for a scan on something, it's not just a small thing, is it? They obviously want to do a bit more investigation on that. And he was limping quite badly when he came off. Not that always means something, but in answer to your question, yes, I'd rather have Premier League ready players. But somebody like Akliouche, I think you could go against the grain for that. I think he's a really good talent. And you could argue he'd be pushing for a start. But, other positions to cover as well, of course.
I did actually see Mohamed Kudus leave the stadium yesterday, and he was walking absolutely fine. But you can't ever go on that, because we've seen that many times before. And then, of course, players have gone for scans and then they've been out for a very long period of time. But, yeah, wishing him the very best, and hopefully we will see him back in a Spurs shirt very, very soon. Craig, this is a player that we've spoken about a good few times, and Sky Sports in England and Fabrizio Romano have reported on this player and Tottenham's links, and there are a lot of clubs interested in him. Yandandy. Sky Sports are stating that Tottenham are among several clubs interested in RB Leipzig winger Yandandy. Spurs are in the market for a new forward this month, and Diamande is among the options under consideration. The 19-year-old was being monitored by Manchester United, PSG and Bayern Munich. All of these clubs are keeping tabs on the Ivory Coast international's progress, and the highly rated teenager has been impressing in Germany this season, scoring 7 goals in all competitions. And Italian journalist and transfer expert Fabrizio Romano on this, he has stated, another player who is driving crazy, completely crazy, several clubs is playing in Germany, is Yandandy, the winger from RB Leipzig. Leipzig don't want to sell the player in January. RB Leipzig will do their best to keep the player in January. So eventually it could be a move for the summer, or in order to make it happen in January, clubs need to convince RB Leipzig, and it's never easy with the Red Bull group. He then went on to say, so you should probably think about breaking the bank, and it's not even guaranteed that it is going to be possible. Many clubs are following him. I told you about Manchester United. Manchester United are following Yandandy. They are really interested in the player for the future. They're tracking him at the moment. They're monitoring the player. And then there's Tottenham. They are doing exactly the same. PSG are also following Yandandy, and I'm told that more Premier League clubs are also tracking the player's situation. This is another rising star. This is another very, very exciting talent, Craig. And like Fabrizio Romano said there, and we've said it on these shows in the past couple of days, this player could cost up to £87 million. It will be a very, very expensive purchase. Now, it's interesting how Fabrizio Romano says about Manchester United following the player, their heavy interest in the player. Of course, Ruben Amorim has been sacked today, so that'd be an interesting situation. But when you've got the likes of PSG following this player, what chance do Spurs have in signing this young rising star?
Well, there is that to it. I would say on that as well. It could be £87 million. That is a hell of a lot of money on a teenager. Was he 19? That is a hell of a lot of money. Do we want? Is Spurs the sort of club that's going to take a risk? Because that would be a risk. You're talking about daring and doing. That is certainly daring and doing. But come on, that is a hell of a risk. Obviously, the lad's got really good stats, and the amount of teams that are looking at him would say that. But for me, 87 million. I can't see Tottenham going that deep, to be honest, in January. That's a huge chunk of our transfer budget, if you're led to believe,
It proves again, though, Craig, doesn't it, that Fabrizio Romano says here that the Red Bull Group, it's never easy dealing with them, and they would need convincing on the sum of money. So if a team did, offer a ridiculous amount of money, it could be possible, but it's highly likely in the summer and not the January transfer window. It just proves again and underlines again how difficult the January transfer window is, because which top clubs want to be selling their top players and rising stars in the January window.
Well, that's right. The only way you're going to get top stars out is if you offer a ridiculous amount of money and the club can't financially afford to turn it down, or you're going to get players that are on the fringes, like your Brennan Johnsons, that are surplus to requirements for that club. And I'll be likely, we've got a good relationship with them. If you come in and offer them 80 million, I'm sure they'd bite your hand off and sell it. But I don't think that's the right decision.
Sometimes in that regard, though, some clubs could end up way overpaying because it's kind of desperation in the January transfer window because they want to sign new players.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's look, it could be, it's the merry-go-round, isn't it, as well, with players. One player goes, somebody else comes in. I still maintain, a club like RB Leipzig, you offer them a decent fee for this player, they're probably going to be laughing all the way to the bank, because they seem to have a really good youth, or whether it's a scouting network. They're at RB Leipzig, they keep producing these players, a bit like Ajax used to do. So whoever's working there, perhaps we should be looking at getting their head of recruitment, because they're doing a really good job. Buying them young or getting them in young and cheap, and then selling for a hell of a profit. Of course, seen them do it many times. The last one for me is, you mentioned Mohamed Kudus. He's just talking about his injury now. I don't think there's been anything since coming on here. I did have a look that the club have said, unless there's been anything in the last 10, 15 minutes about the extent of Kudus' injury. Is it a position we're going to need to replace Mohamed Kudus or bring in somebody either on loan or whatever? Because you'd think they would be looking at that anyway, because they've sold Brennan Johnson now. So I don't think this is anything different to what the club's plans are, perhaps, but perhaps it's made it a bit more expedient, with the Kudus injury. Are they going to have to go in a bit quicker than they may have liked? Obviously, Kudus, to be fair, I don't think Kudus has been playing as well in the last month or so as he did at the beginning of the season, but he's still an important player for Spurs. He's probably one of the first names on the team sheet most weeks. And now we're going to be without him for an unknown period of time. So are they going to have to replace Kudus? I think it all depends on how bad this injury is, but I still maintain we still need to bring in somebody to replace Brennan Johnson.
As Dustin's videos always show us and highlight, that most of our play is going down the right, either Mohamed Kudus or Pedro Porro. And Mohamed Kudus is definitely our most creative player, and we're always trying to go down that right-hand side. He is going to be a huge miss for us if he is out for a long period of time. I'm hoping it is just a knock, and we've heard that phrase many times before, Craig, and then suddenly a player is out for months on end. But I really do hope that is not the case, and Mohamed Kudus returns in a Spurs shirt very, very soon. But let's be honest about it and frank about it. We've got to be signing players in that offensive final third area. When you get rid of a player like Brennan Johnson, you then need to replace that player in that position, or definitely in the final third, someone who can create opportunities, assists, and ultimately score goals. Because when you look, and we've spoke about this in the last few days, in the last 3 seasons, getting rid of the 3 top goal scorers in the last 3 campaigns, Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, and Brennan Johnson. And then when you think about the players that are missing in that area as well, Javi's been out for the last 3 games, and of course Kulusevski and James Maddison, Dominic Solanke, Frank was even a bit cagey about that again, being asked about Dominic Solanke, when is he going to be ready? He said he's rusty at the moment in training. He's been out for the last 6 months. So hopefully he will be back very, very soon. But it does worry me, that final third area, because that Sunderland game was really frustrating in the fact that we did create chances. We were so much better in that game overall. I know the second half wasn't the best, but we still created chances in that second half. I thought the first half was absolutely fantastic. We created so many chances that we hadn't seen in previous games. And how many times have we recorded the podcast saying about, such poor XG and we'd only had one shot on target? Matisse Tell had a shot on target in the first minute of that game, and it felt lively. And I tell you what, if we had a goal scorer and a finisher on Sunday against Sunderland, we'd have put that game to bed and we'd have won that game. So Thomas Frank and the recruitment team must be thinking, look, we need to do better in that final third, because the players that Spurs have had, in recent history, we've had good finishers, and at the moment, we are really lacking in that area. Craig, the final one from me, and I know many people might laugh at this one. This is a player that we have been linked with before. Spanish international, Nico Williams, Spurs, and this one is from This one is from Give Me Sport and Team Talk. They're both reporting that Spurs are interested in signing Athletic Bilbao forward Nico Williams as a potential replacement for Brennan Johnson. Nico Williams is one of the high-profile names that Tottenham are considering in their ongoing search for a new wide forward. Now, the frightening Spain international, signing him, it may be proving a difficult task for Spurs, because he's under contract. Wait for this. He's under contract until the end of the 2034-35 season, and he reportedly earns around £350,000 per week. Now, as I said, we have been linked with this player before in multiple transfer windows in recent years. He's currently 23, of course, left winger, Spain international, 30 caps, 6 goals. He is one hell of a player, Craig. I tell you what, if Spurs could get a deal done for him, I'd be absolutely delighted, and he would certainly fill that space. Is it likely? No. Is it unlikely? Absolutely. What do you make of this report?
He's, I would say he's one of my favourite players in Spain, actually. At the moment, I've always really liked him, but I would just caveat that. Look, I'd absolutely love him, and it would talk about showing statements of intent. That would certainly be it. But to be honest, I think we've got more chance of buying Mark Williams, the snooker player, than Nico Williams. So I'll just leave it at that.
I love some of the replies on X, actually, when I posted this earlier, because whenever any reports go out stating that Spurs are interested in blah, 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 the amount of people who then reply and go, well, I'm interested in Kylie Minogue, but, she's not interested in me. Yeah. Is that all you got?
Yeah, that's all for me today.
That's it. Well, thank you so much, Craig. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for listening. And we will be back again tomorrow with another daily Tottenham transfer news show. Stay safe and well. Have a great week, and we will see you very soon. Come on, you Spurs.
We'll be right back.